Good afternoon again. Thank you so much for being here and for your time during this whole process to work on this project. Today is my pleasure to present and defend my thesis under the title, How Public Relations Agencies Communicate Their Diversity and Inclusion Efforts on Their Websites. As Dr. Key just mentioned, some changes were done since the proposal, and I will address them quickly. The first one is that the term of inclusion was added to it. Since we are talking about diversity and inclusion, I added this concept, and I show the relationship between inclusion and diversity and how they are both needed to actually get all the benefits that a diverse workforce can provide to organizations. Also, when addressing organizational online communications, I added visual communications since the representation in corporate websites photograph can help to the written message to be better. And also the websites are a communication tool that can help to attract more best talent and more diverse talent. The main change that was done since the proposal was the change of the theoretical framework. For this research, I'm using the leveraging variety model that was developed in 2008, and it has been used for quantitative and qualitative studies around how organizations are addressing diversity and inclusion in the workplace. This model is appropriate for this study since we are studying how public relations agencies are addressing diversity and inclusion, and this model provides approach indicators as aims, dimensions of diversity, practices, management structures, benefits, and also negative effects that each approach can have in the organizations. Just a reminder, the purpose of this study is to evaluate the status of diversity and inclusion statements displayed on public relations agencies' websites using the leveraging variety model. The research questions also changed a little bit since the proposal. So the first one is, what dimensions of diversity are addressed most frequently by the public relations agencies on their websites? The second one is, which genders and race are frequently portrayed in the photograph of public relations agencies' websites? And the second question is, what diversity and inclusion practices do public relations agencies communicate on their websites? And the third one is, which diversity models are reflected on public relations agencies' websites? The first two address more the dimensions of diversity, and the other two are more about the practices and the models that are presented on the leveraging variety model. The method, a quantitative content analysis, was done in a sample of 236 public relations agencies' websites. These agencies, this sample was done from 3 different rankings of public relations agencies, industry ranking that already exists. They had to be US-based agencies since we are studying diversity and inclusion in the United States. And the unit of analysis was web pages. These are some of the variables that were coded and analyzed to answer our research questions. Now our findings. For our first research question, this study found that the most frequently way that agencies are portraying diversity is diversity of skills and professional backgrounds with 15.7%, followed by gender with 14%, then disabilities, parenthood, ethnicity, race, and other. Under other, the dimensions that fell into others were those that they weren't part of the definition that this study provides, but also has marital status and veteran status, and for then, or sex orientation, age, and beliefs. Under belief, we had any type of mention of belief on the websites, has political belief or religious beliefs. Now, the second research question has genders and race. Half of the sample had photographs on their website, around 47% of them. So a total of 641 photographs were analyzed, and we found that almost half of these photos portrayed both female and male. Then 36% of them portray only women, only female, and then 14% of them only male. In regards of race, it was coded as white, black, and other. Under other, Asians, Native Americans, Pacific Islander, and Middle Eastern and Northern Africans were coded under this category, and then combinations among categories were done since there are pictures that portray more than one person. So the results shows that 43.8% portray exclusively white individuals, followed by white and other, then with 11% more than 3 races, then white and black, then exclusively other, then exclusively white, and with 0.5% black and other. Now, the model proposed different organizational practices that organizations can have when addressing diversity, and the 3 most frequent mentioned ones were professional development, flexible work hours, and strategic partnerships. Then less than 10% were, these were the other ones that were mentioned, and these are mentorship programs, diversity and inclusion initiatives that they were more community focused, minority recruitment, diversity and inclusion officer or consul, and training. Training is different from professional development because these trainings were coded as diversity trainings. And then resource groups. Our last question, which diversity models are reflected on public relations agencies' website? Taking into account the way that these organizations are communicating their diversity and inclusion efforts, the practices were coded and then analyzed, and every agency fell into categories. So we had that 66.1% fell into minority assimilation model, then diversity management with 26%, and then leveraging variety with 7.2%. We wish 72. Now, to have a more descriptive study, we were also coding diversity and inclusion statements, and this study defined this statement as the commitment that agencies are doing, and they are communicating that commitment on a written piece on their websites. The following themes emerged after this analysis. 45 agencies of the total sample had diversity and inclusion statements in place, and these are the themes that emerged. Diversity and inclusion as part of the organizational culture, diversity and inclusion and its impact to the agency work, and diversity and inclusion justified as a way that agencies should portray and should represent their audiences. Now, what these findings mean for the industry and also for the academia. First, the dimensions of diversity in public relations agencies' websites. Our findings show that diversity is being mostly addressed from skills and professional backgrounds, and this could be a way to address the fact that the concept of diversity is really broad, so we need to understand how agencies are understanding and defining this concept. Then we have gender and disability as the second and third most mentioned dimension of diversity. This could be rooted in an equal employment opportunity law or legal reasons, since we don't have laws in place to protect any type of discrimination against gender or disability. But it also is contrary to the fact that we also have the civil rights law that protects employees from race discrimination. And when talking and addressing the dimensions of diversity, race is far behind from gender and disabilities. Also, previous research has shown that senior leadership communications professionals define diversity first as race, then has ethnicity, and then has gender. So the way that agencies are portraying the dimensions of diversity don't match with how senior professionals are defining diversity. Now, going back to the visual content, when talking about gender, we are portraying the industry in a more balanced way, since the public relations industry is a female-dominated industry, but the pictures on the website, half of them portray a more balanced industry, since 50% of them portray both female and male. But when talking about race, they are portraying the industry as the way that it is, lack of diversity, mostly white. Now, the practices: professional development, flexible hours, and strategic partnerships. Professional development included internship programs, also workshops to develop different skills, and professionals and young professionals have stated that internships are an important professional development practice that organizations have in place. Also, the communication of flexible hour can be rooted in the fact that to recruit best talents, since 40% of millennials, which are the upcoming and growing workforce, have stated that having the flexibility to work from anywhere is an important element when when evaluating a job opportunity. And the strategic partnerships are more on that corporate social responsibility part, since these partnerships were done with nonprofits that work with diverse groups. Now, the themes that emerged from the diversity statements, the diversity and inclusion statement analysis: diversity as an organizational practice, ties back to what Mondi studied in 2015 when he stated that diversity should be an organizational value, so organizations can get the most out of diversity, and it shouldn't be just a standalone practice or something that just HR is taking care of. Diversity has its impact on agency work is a way that agencies are addressing diversity has a competitive advantage, and they're communicating that through their websites. And diversity has reflecting the society and the audiences that we are living in ties back to the concept of requisite variety that we presented in 1979, that organizations should look as the environments where they do business with. And the diversity models. Most of the agencies are falling into the assimilation minority ones, and we detected this through the way that they are communicating those practices. So this is why this research proposed to add communication as an approach indicator, as a way to improve diversity communication, but also the study of diversity and inclusion in organizations. I added this approach and like different examples that each approach can, these indicators, so different approaches can have a guidance and an example of how to communicate diversity and inclusion efforts. And it's helpful because it can be used in internal documents or also in external documents as the website. This is a model that could help to study different channels, just as websites, but also social media pages, and it can be directed to different target audiences as potential employees, clients, or community in general. The limitations and future research. Well, one of the limitations was coding the visible diversity, since it was coded from the perspective of the coders, know how the person in the picture identifying themselves. This is a descriptive study. Since the method that was used was content analysis, we cannot say why they are not communicating their diversity and inclusion practices. Also, tying back to that, the communication of a practice on the website doesn't mean that they don't have those practices in place, or that if they do have it in place, if they are communicating it, it doesn't mean that they don't have it in place. These limitations can be addressed by future research that might be focusing on different indicators approaches, now with the new approach of communication, but also can focus on the negative effects or the benefits, and can use different methods as interviews, focus group, or surveys to the employees of these agencies or to potential employees to see how they feel about the organization when they see that diversity and inclusion content is in place on their websites. Thank you. Questions?